Big win down there in Waco today. TCU, and I get it. Now they're carrying the weight of the world. They know they're the most vulnerable. They know they're going to be the first one to get jumped or called out. They handled it 29-28.
Yep.
These guys go in there. They take care of their business against Baylor on a walk-off kick. The pressure, and they welcomed it. Fellas, biggest takeaway right now, and we already kind of talked about, if they run the table, they're either in or have a rock-solid case to be in. Do you feel they can handle the next 2 weeks? Because this kind of pressure, if you haven't been up around it a lot, most teams, it'll buckle them. Your thoughts, Matt Hayes, on what you see from TCU coming down the next month?
So I got a couple thoughts. Initially, you're at Iowa State. I believe they're at Iowa State next week, and then it's probably looking like, I believe it's Texas in the championship game. Is what it looks like right about now. I think the Iowa State will be a lot tougher than people think. I think the Texas game could be tough. But the thing that really jumps out at me, honestly, George, when I look at TCU won 5 games last year. Think about this now. USC won 4 games last year.
Wow.
LSU won 6 games last year. All 3 of those guys with first-year coaches. All 3 of them hit the portal, got guys that could make immediate impacts.
Yep.
Got a few immediate impact freshmen, and away they go, man. I mean, the years of, like, the days of, hey, let's give the guy 2 or 3 years to get his guys in place and blah, blah, blah. Forget about that, man.
That does 2 things. It's going to inspire a lot of programs around the country. Why not us? And it's going to put a whole lot of pressure on some of these programs around the country from administration saying, why aren't we? That pressure is going to ratchet up, I think, all across college football.
George, you follow USC was terrible last year.
They were terrible.
A terrible
team. In the wilderness.
Yep. Now look at them.
Yep.
Now they are a legit playoff team right now.
Yep. And a legit destination if you're trying to win, get to the NFL,
NIL, everything.
NIL. I mean, they've got one of those big old beaming spotlights like they used to have outside the clubs. Felder, remember the clubs used to have Felder? Big old spotlight. You could see 10 miles away. Like that's it. That's it. Michael Felder.
Just drive towards there.
Yeah, just drive that way. Yeah. Michael Felder, the Horned Frog, sir.
What do I think they're good? Yeah.
No, what was your biggest takeaway so far in this collective grit that they're showing? Like a win is a win is a win. But they're not a knockout artist. A lot of their wins are 12-round split decisions, but they keep getting their hand raised at the end of it.
They fight you. They're a team that they make it work. And here's the big thing. Let's go through this, right? And by the way, we do need to mention that Kansas State is actually in the second position.
Oh, they are. Okay.
So we've got Kansas State sitting there with TCU, and we'll see what happens. I know Texas they took a hatchet to Kansas tonight, but Kansas State's still in the catbird, or TCU's in the catbird seat. I don't know what's underneath the catbird seat, but that's where Kansas State is sitting.
Who does K-State have next week? Do you know?
Kansas State next week, they have, and I got it right here. Kansas State plays Kansas.
Kansas, wow.
And that's the Sunflower game, yeah.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that takes shape. But the big thing for me, my biggest takeaway was Max Duggan. He stood up, man.
Yeah.
This is a guy that their run game wasn't really working. And I know we talked about Kendra Miller a little bit earlier, but the reality is Duggan led them in rushing, even with sacks. He led them in rushing. So they find a way. And I think that's the biggest thing is they find a way. I don't mean to listen. I know you call the SEC Jurassic Park, but right now, if I was going to call any team Jurassic Park, I'd call it TCU because life finds a way, and TCU keeps finding a way to win. And so that's why they're at 11-0, and that's why Alabama's got 2 losses, and because they couldn't find a way.
Matt, could you go over those 3 programs again, their records last year, the ones who are now in?
TCU had 5 wins. They were 5-7. USC was 4-8, and USC was a terrible team. LSU was 6-7. But the reality is all three of them fired their coaches.
Yes.
And fired. Well, so think about this now. So TCU fired maybe the greatest coach in school history. USC fired a guy who, granted, was not among the greatest coaches in school history, but had won their last Pac-12 title. And then LSU won a guy who won fired a guy who won a national championship game 2 years earlier. And these guys, Brian Kelly walked into that football office in December, and they had 39 scholarship players. 39. And now he wins the West, which is considered, again, we're talking about Jurassic Park, George,
The most
considered
vicious
the greatest division in college football. They go in there and win that division and beat Alabama. So what he did it with, not only that, George, they have 2 freshman tackles right now, Will Campbell and Emory Jones. Will Campbell is a beast. Emory Jones is good too. They've got the best freshman in college football, in Harold Perkins, who's just an
monster.
Yeah.
Monster, yeah.
And the tight end Taylor, who's a freshman.
And Jason Taylor's kid at tight end is really good. They got a quarterback who, when he left Arizona State, his teammates on that team were cheering on social media that he left.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted the kid.
How about that?
He goes, and now look what he's doing at LSU. And I think you look at things like, here's another great anecdote. Max Duggan lost the starting job in fall camp.
Bingo.
Chandler Morris.
Preseason. Yep.
Yeah, to Chandler Morris.
And
Chandler
only
Morris
injury put him back in.
Yeah, gets hurt. Chandler Morris gets hurt. I think late in the second quarter. Duggan goes in, and boom, away they go. And they're great stories, man. They are great stories. It's fun as hell to watch this stuff. I mean, Lane Kiffin did the same thing at LSU. It took him a year, but the COVID year was his first year there. But they won 10 games in year 2. They lost to Arkansas today.
Same thing at Ole Miss.
Games again.
They got their behind whipped today.
Yeah, but they could still win 10 games again. Yep. So my point is, it doesn't matter anymore about, you got to give the guy 2 years and 3 years. You can win right now if you're the right coach in the right situation and you got NIL money. You can win right now.